When you're 8 films deep into a series, especially a series with as recognizable of a formula as the one found in the Rocky and Creed series, for me the primary challenge and central task of each new entry is giving us, the audience, as fresh and as honest of a version of that formula as the filmmakers can muster. And to be frank, I really do think that each series only has so many brand new iterations in their given tank before they get to the inevitable Rocky 5. To be clear though, as simple as it is, I really do love the Rocky formula. A formula which was, 3 years ago, beautifully taken on by a brand new franchise. And part of that formula is, of course, watching a character in the span of one movie go from his lowest place to his highest place, which of course means it's not even close to being a spoiler to say that Adonis couldn't remain on the cloud 9 that we found him on at the beginning of this film. To rise again, first, he must fall. And with a plot that predictable, it was, as I was just saying, up to screenwriters Juel Taylor and Sylvester Stallone, as well as director Stephen Caple Jr. to make elements like that rise and fall as unique and compelling as they could possibly be. And happily, I can sincerely say that there were very, very few moments in this film that fell flat on their face. The filmmakers choosing to solely rely on that formula to keep us, the audience, engaged. Almost every single one of the steps downwards and then upwards once again were competently scripted, passionately directed, and beautifully performed. The moments, however, that really got me to lean forwards in my seat and feel fully engaged were those that were brave enough to be really different. Moments where the narrative turned left instead of the traditional right. Moments where Caple Jr. chose to put his camera here in the boxing ring instead of there. Moments where the editor lingered that much longer on a quiet moment between two characters. Moments where the sound designer decided to turn the music down instead of up. On a narrative level, many of those different moments occurred between Adonis, Bianca, and their newborn child, and were just wonderful to watch. Being a new parent myself, I just found so many of the scenes that those three shared to be so filled with genuineness and simple but powerful honesty. And with the character of Rocky, and now with Creed, each of them have only ever been as powerful in the ring as that thing motivating them outside the ring. And in this film, giving Adonis not only a wife, but a new daughter, helped to provide some of that motivation. Motivation that certainly intensified the emotional and dramatic stakes. I'll say too, I really appreciated how cohesive the filmmakers were at least attempting to make this film on a thematic level. It was very clear that the screenwriters and directors by the film's finale were really trying to unify the characters' arcs, even as those characters quite often found themselves in different places physically. And speaking of those different characters, there was also a lot to like about Ivan and Victor Drago. This, of course, being a boxing movie, it was first of all just fantastic to have a couple of quote-unquote villains that were about as physically imposing as you can possibly get. But of course that element was nowhere near as important or engaging as the history that those characters shared with Rocky and Adonis both. A couple of my favorite scenes in this film were just very small, very simple dialogue scenes between those characters, just because of the dramatic tension and electricity that they possessed. I'll say too, I thought the way that the filmmakers utilized the history of Ivan and his son Victor to provide them their underlying motivations was quite smart as well. With that said, the pair of them, up until the finale anyways, really weren't given much more than one note to play over and over and over, which after a time did flatten them as characters as well as deflate some of the film's overall nuance and cohesion. Something else that the film fell prey to was just feeling the need to so thoroughly explain and justify every single one of its characters' motivations and decisions at every single turn along the way. The film was 2 hours and 10 minutes and probably could have been closer to an hour 50. It wasn't that any of the scenes were just flat out bad, but sometimes just a little overindulgent or a little too precious, which ultimately bogged down the pace overall. Honestly though, the main detractor from this film for me was just its inability to give Adonis something genuinely powerful to fight for. As I've expressed already, the filmmakers did do their best to give him that something by placing him in a new family. But at the end of the day, it really was seeming to just be his pride and need to forge a lasting legacy that pushed him back into the ring. By contrast, the first film had the underdog story going for it, and hugely succeeded because it was able to depict a man who was standing beneath the shadow of his once great father, and really struggling to get out from beneath that, and ultimately defeat his feelings of inadequacy. And though this film tried to repeat that, it could never fully convince me that Adonis was that same underdog character whose life depended on him getting back into that ring and going toe-to-toe with his demons once again. When it was all said and done, though, I did still find myself liking this film quite a bit, because Creed 2 managed to do what the best films in this series have always done, which is show us, the audience, what amounts to an externalization of the battles that we all must do in our own lives. Of course, most of the time, our fights aren't waged with our fists against intimidating foes, but against our own insecurities, egos, prides, and fears. And it's for all these reasons I will give the film a 3.5 out of 5 and a heart. I would still love to know what you guys thought of the film though, so definitely comment below and let me know. Also, I am very curious to hear your definitive rankings of all the Rocky and Creed films. See if I can't do it off the top of my head, from bottom to the top. Rocky 5, Rocky 3, Rocky 4, Creed 2, Rocky 2, Rocky Balboa, Creed, and the original Rocky. Finally, please do subscribe. I'm going to continue to review films and television on this channel, and I would love for you to stay up to date on all of those things. But for now, I'm Chris Hartwell. This is The Heartbeat. Thank you for joining me.